the healing process becomes significantly difficult, no matter how many no matter how many billions of dollars you have, because the stigma has to break within the home and within that culture.
They need emotional support and not to feel guilty or ashamed about how they feel. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. B, and today I'm joined with Parham, who is fast becoming our resident psychologist. We're doing a lot of stuff together, extensive history in substance abuse, family counseling. He's a therapist. You can see all this stuff below. Let's get started. Today's topic we want to talk about, and give some information on the anatomy of the stigma and social factors influencing mental health and its outcome. Let's get started. Parham, I did it on purpose. I didn't tell you what I want to talk about. So,
Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes the best information comes from spontaneity, and it also comes from speaking from the heart, not from the head.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value to be found in that. So,
and I know you know a lot about this topic, so I'll get started.
Yeah.
So, we often talk about the stigma with mental health and substance abuse. Okay, great. We also talk a lot about the social determinants that influence disease. And that might be sometimes hard for you people to understand. So I'm going to take an example. I'm going to do an illustration. And although this is about no particular person, I have known so many as you have in this kind of situation. And I want to show you exactly how it impacts mental health. Let's take a young African American. Let's make it worse. Let's make a young African American female living in inner city Chicago. And let's project to the future, she will have schizophrenia. Okay. And let's say it's going to present itself at 20. Let's add something else. And she, that means hearing voices, hallucinations, delusions, abnormal thinking patterns, behavior, and so forth. Now, in her family, none of them have ever gone to college or even beyond high school. And there is also a history of schizophrenia and mental health disorders and substance abuse and economic and social barriers. And she is a female and she's African American. No one in this young lady's life who's doing amazing till the age of 10, 11, 12. She's a great kid. She is actually enjoys school and is doing school. But from 10, 11, 12, because many diseases, many disorders, mental health or otherwise, that are chronic, for example, a lot of the autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis, things start presenting themselves years before the person even knows it or the family picks up, hey, what's going on? Things start happening in her inner intrapsychic world. And her behavior starts to change in some ways. School starts to decline at 12, 13, 14. She might be dressing weird. She might be aggressive. By 50, she starts to drink a lot of Coca-Cola. For some reason, that suits her, okay? In addition, by 15 or 16 or 17, she also starts to smoke pot out of nowhere. And by the time, and no one in her family will discuss the history of mental health issues in the family, and no one steps up to call out aberrant behavior that is clinical, namely, hey, maybe there's something mental health going on. And things just go from bad to worse to worse to worse. Periods of promiscuity, running away, not bathing, etc., etc. And we can write the rest of her life on a piece of paper with 3 sentences. The details everybody knows, and they will fill themselves in. She ends up eventually at some point, maybe when she's in prison, maybe she's in drug rehab, she will get that diagnosis and start dealing with the shattered pieces of a life that could have been, but was taken away her from this disorder, this disease of schizophrenia. Let's take another young man, okay? Young lady. Let's take a female, Caucasian. She comes into a very well-to-do family of attorneys, all Ivy League educated, also a long history of schizophrenia. In fact, the same issues that this young lady has, she does have in her family as this African American young lady had. She's also doing great in school early on. She's also doing well in school early on. She wants to be an attorney. And as she's growing up at the appropriate time, thoughtfully, with the help of health professionals that the family has been plugged into and the resources they have, and we'll even add her mother, in fact, has schizophrenia, right? Well controlled on medication over the years. They also start to educate her about what this is, the possibility of her having it. They're constantly vigilant and looking for aberrant behavior to deal with, ready at hand, in pocket, and physical resource in pocket, meaning they have cash available. They're ready to get mental health for adolescents, young ladies, whoever it is. And as she comes up, she becomes educated and age appropriate, educated and aware of this thing potentially popping up. She comes up and she has some of the same issues. The family immediately gets help. It's an open discussion in the family, in the greater family as well. Everybody is supportive of her. She gets the appropriate mental health during adolescence if needed. And then she, at the right time when things are getting really bad, amazing psychiatrist is ready to go. She's medicated. This goes on through her late teens, early 20s. There's some adjustments, some exacerbations, some, acute manic or psychotic episodes immediately gets taken care of. Everyone talks about it. She gets through college and becomes a successful. What I just described is the stigma of mental health and substance. And she never gets involved in substance abuse. She never starts smoking pot. Maybe she had a little run because she was self-medicating. So what I've described is the anatomy of schizophrenia and have infused in this discussion the critical importance of the stigma with the African Americans. You're crazy, right? And this is long known. There's nothing, I'm not condemning it, but historically, in that community, as in mine, mental health is a stigmatized issue. You don't talk about it, etc. You don't recognize it. The family has barely enough resources as they live in the projects, and housing is, difficult. Food is difficult. Clothing is difficult. Their capacity to communicate and reach out for resources is difficult, and it just plays itself out in an intergenerational kind of way. Sure. Whereas the other family, so not social determinants, socioeconomic, stigma, cultural in this case, and this is what I had drawn up as the anatomy of the stigma and socioeconomics that infuse themselves into how our chronic diseases end up, some of them that are extremely stigmatized, and they can lead to other issues such as incarceration, legal issues, other health issues, severe smoking, drinking a whole bunch of coke. She starts to smoke pot to self-medicate because actually gives her a little relief. That's what I wanted to present to you. And then you give us your take on this. And at the very least, at the end of this, we've educated to some extent some people that might be in that situation that might take this more seriously and reach out to who they need to as best as they can. And number two, I think we've diffused some of the stigma out there and why it's so wrong and criminal and cruel to infuse these things with stigma. So,
Yeah, man, that was great. And Dr. B and myself were both very passionate with being able to work with and just see the lens of the marginalized kind of communities that we have out there. I think we both have a soft spot for it. We understand the difficulty with the ease of access or the access to resources that potentially is limited. But I want to do a little exercise and a flip side of something you just shared right now, just for the heck of it, because what Doctor said right now, I wholeheartedly think that's it right there. That was a perfect example. Obviously, these were two completely separate cases, but the impact that the view towards mental illness had and the resources towards mental illness had was probably one of the important parts, along with the education, along with the ongoing support when there was a crisis, inevitable crisis. to continue to put that person on the right path. But I'll tell you this. So some people might be watching, well, there it is again. Only the ones that had the money were able to kind of get the treatment that they needed. However, I will tell you this. I work as a mental health clinician, and I've worked with a lot of families, like the first family I was talking with and the second family I was talking with. But I have noticed when the stigma is real and it's very, very a part of the psyche of a collective family, this is what happens, which is really sad. So let's say the second family is actually well-to-do family. This is something that I've seen that is so sad. For anyone that thinks it's the financial piece is what was the determining factor there, it actually wasn't. It was the way that family went about it. Because I've worked with family members that, let's say their son or daughter had a good childhood, something seemed a little off, but it was just a healthy childhood, and maybe there was an episode of psychosis they experienced, and the family didn't really know what's going on, and the psychosis started to kind of progress and grow legs, and it started to turn into a full-blown diagnosis. One of the saddest things I've ever seen is family members say, you know what, that's not happening to our kid. My son or daughter does not have that diagnosis. Because in their mind, they think that if they accept the fact that this potentially is happening with their loved one, then there is this thing called mental illness in their family. And what are they going to say? I mean, in our culture, it happens all the time.
Yeah, in our culture, it does.
What are they going to say to their neighbors? What are they going to say to their family? What are they going to say to this? And they deny. And in that denial, what happens? I mean, a person feels like that something's wrong with them. They feel like my family doesn't accept who I am. They don't even know what's going on with them half the time until there's some education and formal diagnosis going. So I just want people to know that despite of the resources, if the family system has a specific stigma towards mental illness is bad or drugs and alcohol is bad, and they want to do whatever they can to push it out of their lives and push it out of their reality and just go deeper in the denial, the healing process becomes significantly difficult, no matter how many billions of dollars you have, because the stigma has to break within the home and within that culture, or else there's no shot.
Absolutely. I love you. So this is complex because we're dealing with individuals, we're dealing with society, and we're dealing with utility of resources. What are the resources available to you? And what Parham just described is critical, right? I would call it, how sophisticated do you want to be as an individual and break from tradition and be comfortable in yourself? But it's possible, even in poverty, or even if you can't understand certain things that may be too complex and complicated in your view, which I disagree, you probably could, you at least have the capacity to start digging out resources. Loving your children or those loved ones around you sometimes means much more than embracing them or giving them that food, because we do those kinds of things where we feel guilty or we want to move away from the real issues, but you're not doing anyone any favors. And what you described, and this is something you can, one aspect of that is what Parham just described, which is openly bring this out, because if you don't, besides everything else that person needs, that child needs, they need emotional support and not to feel guilty or ashamed about how they feel.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what you were trying to, the essence of what you were getting at.
Yeah, 100%, because it allows the person to know, hey, even though you're going through this a new experience that none of us know what's going on, we're in it together and we're going to find a solution. So whether you have the resources or not, when you decide as a team to go look for the solutions, look for the answers, get educated, that's where you start to break some stigma. And ultimately those multi-generational patterns of dysfunction and abuse, that's how they get broken. It's education is really important.
Absolutely.
And it's not the money. If you have all the money in the world, but you choose not to get educated, the stigma will continue.
Yeah, not get educated and live in la la land.
Yeah.
Look, I always used to say, you can believe that the moon is made out of cheese, and let's take gravity out of the picture. And if I take a rocket ship at 3,000 miles an hour and head for the moon, I'm not going to bounce back. I'm going to crash into a rock. The moon is not made out of cheese, regardless of what you think. In that same sense, reality is reality, and it's okay because we do have, as we discussed in another video, resilience, ability to accept change, what's thrown at us, and make the best of it, and in fact, come out better on the other side. for both us and the loved ones involved. And so I think that's an important message. Anything closing on this?
No, it's good stuff, man. So it was a great discussion to be a part of.
That was fun, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.